For those of you who can see up front, or if you happen to be walking by before the meeting started, I've got some small plates that I've made just for fun in the past. I usually make bowls, but sometimes you want to just switch off and do something different. When you think of it, a plate is nothing more than a wider bowl with a very short rim. And between a plate and a platter, it's just the diameter and the height of it. You know, to an ant, this is a platter. But that's also a salad plate, a very shallow bowl for putting loose diamonds or chocolates in. I've made a few plates. In fact, these two here, I'm actually using myself at home. And it's really making a different effect when you're eating. Because, no, you're not getting extra fiber in your diet. But all your cutlery is usually steel, unless you're only dining at McDonald's and it's plastic. The tools are steel. When they hit this, they don't make too much clatter. You put it on a china or a porcelain plate, it's really noisy. You get 6 people in a dining room, it's a hell of a racket. It's quieter when you eat off of wood. For cleaning up afterwards, it's easy. Do not put them in a dishwasher. You'll mess them up. There's actually an item in your kitchen called a sink. There's a little gizmo mounted near there. If you open a valve, water comes out and lands in the sink. You'll have to wash your hands sometime during the day. Why not do the dishes and your hands at the same time if you want to conserve your water? You put a stack of plates in the water, conventional china plates or whatever, right? You got to hunt for them. These guys float. You can bob for plates. It's fun. Question, Martin.
If you get a real bad buildup on them, you can just chuck them up and clear it off.
You could do that or throw them in the fireplace. Yes. These 2 pieces are naked. Nothing on them. Nothing on them at all. They're both made of poplar. I just had some of this wood laying around. If you're going to make a plate to eat off of, hopefully it's not going to be porous or full of wormholes, because then the gravy and stuff will just leak all over your placemat. And that defeats the purpose.
How do you know that, Mike?
I've tested it. I have thick placemats, Larry. But this is an experiment, and I wanted to see how it is. You can sand them to 200 grit. It doesn't matter. If you fry an egg over easy, it'll stick to the plate. And I've made a couple of others more recently. Here's a pair of walnut plates. These are all done up, sanded, ready to go to be finished. And they will eventually have an acrylic buildup put on these. Then I'm going to shift over, if I have enough time, and try some goblets. These I've made at locations like the fairgrounds when you're making tops for 9 days. Let's try something different. Let's do a goblet. You get thirsty. And they do work. This one I made for myself to play with. It has a acrylic finish on it, water-based acrylic. And I've used it for everything from water, juice, beer, rum, soft drinks. It doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt the finish, and it doesn't affect the taste. And wood being a little bit more insulative than just glass or plastic, your cold drink stays cooler a bit longer, unless you're really thirsty. So with all that said, let's load this piece of something. I'm not sure what it is. It's dry, it's lightweight. It's got a center point already in it. Can you see it? That allows me then to find center on here. And since the face is flat, all I have to do is put it in place, wind the tailstock up into place until the spurs grip. To help the spurs, I'm going to put a little mark in there. Martin said he uses a dead blow hammer to secure his handles because of his arthritis and other afflictions that other people may have. Some people have taken their drive spurs and position them and take a hammer and mash it in place to get an imprint of the spurs onto the workpiece so that it'll get a better grip. That's not a good idea because you end up mushrooming out the small end of the taper. It will not fit in there anymore. Don't even grind it down, Dennis, or Denny Bob. I use a chisel, an old chunk of mahogany that I brought from Happy Days in the Caribbean. Just smack it. Rotate it 90 degrees, thereabouts. Smack it again. That might hook up with what I got here. I want to make sure the lathe is not turning too fast. That's good. There's no speed readout on this, which doesn't really matter, because once you put a load on, the speed readout is no longer true. It shifts. And I don't know if anybody's able to catch this side over here. Probably not. That's secured. Now I'm trying to create a force between the tail and the head. I always put my finger behind the tailstock as I'm winding the tail into the head. I can feel this end of it creep away faster than just seeing it. And there's a bit of creeping happening, so you try to tighten that up a bit. That's pretty solid there. Then I usually take and secure the spindle and the workpiece and just make sure it's snug. What I didn't address was the tool rest. This thing looks like you've graded the highway with it. If this camera can focus in on it, you'll see all kinds of dents, dimples, scratch marks, all kinds of miserable stuff in there. A couple of things you can do for that. Throw it out and buy a new one. Take a fine file. If it's really bad, just give it a couple of dress-ups with a file. Not just the very top edge, but also come down the slope. Because when you're actually turning, your tools aren't just standing here. You're bringing them down also. So you want to have a nice smooth surface all the way around here that you're going to run the tool against. If not, that little dimple there will be magnified on the workpiece. And it'll be repeated until you get rid of it. And some of the club members I have seen are very, very meticulous about this. When you have your own equipment, you usually take a bit better care of it, but when other people are just switching over at an event like the fairgrounds or what we do on Walnut Street in the spring, all right, I'm done, your turn, bam, you're in there and you're making something and you realize the tools are not quite what they should be. So Larry, this is a $28.50 service fee.
I'll send you a check.
Okay, good. And you can probably see now that it's getting a little bit cleaner. It's also a lot shorter. There are some companies that have on their tool rests a very hard round bar welded in place or fitted in place that is really, really tough material, very difficult to create these dents and dimples in. They're a bit more of a prime or a premium fee. They seem to work a lot better. I'm not going to use this one anyway. I just cleaned it up a bit. Do cost more, yes. If you have just a little bit of, let's say you're working on a fresh piece of wood and you have resins or juices flying off, it'll land on your tool rest. Just take some sandpaper and scuff it back. You don't have to file it. Okay, this just dresses it up finer, just like the sharpening of your tools. You may start with a coarser wheel and go to a finer wheel, then hone it. And you're getting a nice, smooth, slick surface now to follow. Okay, so you're using the table saw bed as a flat surface end to run it on. Right. Yeah. Good. I prefer this tool rest just because. And if you look on this, the wood is not absolutely parallel. It will be. Again, this is going to be hopefully a plate. If not, my fireplace is doing really good right now. The tools that you use to turn are called gouges. Typically, if you're traveling around, say the fairgrounds or Arts Fest or something, a lot of us in the past have been getting a bucket, taking your sharp tools that you spent quite a bit of time getting sharp, and putting them in a bucket. There's two ways to put them in a bucket. Save the tip and slash your wrists, or put them sharp end in. The sharp end eventually becomes bent over and not as sharp as they used to be. You can't carry a bunch of them just in your hand loose like this through a crowd. That gets a bit ugly. But I thought of this for quite a while, and I finally was able to get one. A tool roll. It's not a jelly roll. Again, you just can pack about 12 gouges in here. All the tips are out. You can see what you've got. You roll it up, and the tips are secured. They're not banging onto each other. They're not getting beat up. So all your efforts to make them sharp should stay there. And a face shield is needed. It also helps if you can see through it. If you're working with wet wood, you'll have stuff slinging all over you. And in fact, I've got to get this through quick so I can sling some wet wood. Come on. There we go. Just a bit of window cleaner, paper towel. I even wear the face shield when I'm sanding sometimes, especially if it's an odd-looking piece of wood. You don't want it to fly off. You can see I've had bits of dust on the shield part. Can you hear me now? Do you want to hear me at all? Okay, good. We'll keep it even. Hello. Am I still on?
You're on. Still on.
Okay. I'm going to just take off some wood on this side to create the bottom part of the plate. And I'm going to make a tenon to grip with the chuck. Again, I don't know what speed I'm running. I don't care. So long as the piece is secured and the lathe is not walking across the room. A little bit faster is better than going slow, because like this, you're hitting every bump, and on a larger piece you really feel it. You can take it up a little bit. The interval between the high and low spots is minimized. And if you put too much force, you'll stop the lathe. It doesn't matter how big the lathe is, you can stop it. I've helped John a few times doing projects on his lathe, and we have stopped. What do you got, a 5-horse motor? Or 3? With a 700-pound piece of wood rotating, we just lock up the machine. Now I said a plate should have a fairly wide base, because when you put stuff in your plate and you start eating out of it, you don't want to have a small stem that it's sitting on the table. It'll flop all over. So this is going to be the tenon to be held by the chuck. And how big of a tenon do you need? Well, I happen to make myself once upon a time a little jig. Tells me the biggest and smallest tenon that this specific chuck will hold on to. Saves a lot of fooling around. Obviously, it'll fit. Okay? Continue taking some wood off the back side here. It's easier to do it coming from this side than working around from the head. And the plate doesn't have to be very deep. But it will have a little bit of a rim. Hey, for those who are kind of new to turning, especially those visitors that have just arrived today and they've never done this, you're seeing stuff different than when it's actually used. Number one, you're looking at it probably upside down, and it's also at 90 degrees to its usual location. So you got to visualize what you've got and figure what's going to go away. This tenon, a lot of people wonder what can you do with a skew. Well, you could peel oranges with it.
Open paint cans.
Open paint cans, but that'll probably cut you if it slips. Not a very good idea, Mark.
That's all I can do with it.
That's all you can do. You got Band-Aids? Notice I just cleaned off this tool rest a bit. I've noticed a little bit of roughness on it. I'm going to just come straight in here and create a clean shouldered tenon. Right about there. And it is not absolutely square. It's slightly tapered. There's been some discussion about tapered and straight jaws. That's fine. You need to discuss these things. Not forever. There are differences. Oh, I had lunch. Where's my toothbrush? Oh well. This is a chuck. This is the key. Put it in the hole, rotate it, all the jaws open up at the same time, hopefully, if it's put together right. And close it, the same thing happens. This is where you're going to grab the tenon off of these jaws. This chuck hasn't been cleaned since probably it was made up in Stratford. If I can find my toothbrush, I'll take care of that, because you want to have clean teeth to get a better grip. Doesn't matter. I'll try this brush. If you have an air compressor in your shop, blow it out with air. I don't want to have dust flying all over the library. You can see here, just knock out that dirt and crap. You can see all that in here, all that dust. I want to have a clean bite. It's happier when you can do that. So I'm ready to take this off of the headstock, pop out the drive spur, and bury it in the shavings that I'm going to develop. This now screws on to the head. Any chuck you buy can pretty well fit any lathe that's made. The body is constant. The only difference is the insert that attaches between the lathe spindle and the body of the chuck. Mark?
Other than the brushing of the teeth, do you ever do any maintenance inside or other on the chuck itself?
My maintenance engineer took care of that for me. That's John.
Okay.
He actually would take it apart, soak it in some solvents, in case there's any gum and resins in there. Is that correct? And then reassemble it. And then you can take this chuck key and spin it like that, and everything just moves almost frictionless.
Okay, good.
But at least blow it out. If you look in the back on these gills back here, that's what I call them, that's wide open. On another brand of chuck, it's not open. so you have less chance of buildup on the inside. Anybody else? How often is needed? As often as needed. It's not a bad idea when you're finished turning for the day and you're cleaning off your lathe with your air compressor, just blow the dust out of here before it builds up. That's like how often do you sharpen a tool when it's no longer cutting the way you expect it to be. And when you're attaching a chuck, hold it still, rotate the spindle into the chuck. If not, and Rudy emphasized this 2 weeks ago when he was here on the all-day demo that he did, if you're holding the chuck like this and you turn it on this way, you don't have it seated properly, you could mash up the threads a bit. You might lose your grip. This is a small chuck. They make them bigger, and they are also heavier. You might drop it. You might damage the chuck. It might roll off and smash your foot. $1. Get him, Jim. Now, put it on there and just cinch it in. It's on. Now, you notice the tenon, right? Slightly tapered. These jaws are not tapered, but that's okay. I've got a slight taper on here. It'll grip and squeeze on into the fibers of the wood. Would you like to climb over my head? Okay. I can move the lathe so the camera can get it. This is an easy one to move. I like to tighten it up on all of the axes. There's only 2 points to connect here, or to contact, and I like to hit them both. Make sure it's on there good. Okay? Put back the banjo with the tool rest, make sure it's free and clear, and bring the tailstock back. You may be wondering why. Well, if the tenon fails, you've still got a lot of mass out here. If the tenon isn't quite right, it'll slip off and bam, it'll hit you in the head. Bring the tail up just for a little bit of insurance. Nothing to do with medical. Wrong tool. Whoa, horsey. On the back side here, it's not absolutely true now. It will be. Not maybe, it will be. Notice that I don't put my hand between the workpiece and the tool rest. That really gets ugly, and it hurts. Always have yourself away from the piece you're working on. Now I want to get this outside rim rounded a bit easier. That takes care of that. I'm not going to do any sanding here at all. This is just to show you how I do these things. And for those who have made bowls in the past, it's the same procedure. Go. There you go. And make sure this is smooth. I'm not describing a type of cut, I'm just removing wood that shouldn't be there. If you want to get technical about it, I'm not the one to tell you. A bit of a rounded edge. Okay, if you can interpret, here's the bottom of the plate coming up to the lip, I'm going to take off about a 1/4 inch of material here, just because it doesn't need to be there. It's too tall. Now eventually I'm going to have to move the tailstock out of the way. See, I'm pulling back and deflecting all the chips on me, saving the front row seats. They didn't pay full fare anyway. Or I could go this way. And I'm trying now to look straight on both faces at the same time to figure where the curvature is going to happen to follow inside. You want to get a uniform thickness. Because it just feels better. And I'm going to have a little bit of a rim at the bottom of the plate. It's not going to have an absolute flat bottom. As you can notice on this plate here, it's got a rim. The rest has been taken away. Most of your plates you have in your kitchen will fit and sit on a rim. The whole bottom isn't flat because it could wobble. Especially with wood. It'll pick up moisture and change its dimensions. To check the thickness, you open these up, the top and bottom open at the same time. I don't care what the measurement is. I'm just looking to see if it's the same thickness throughout. Well, there's a bit of a shoulder there. You come around. You find the thickest point and then move it back and see how much space you've got. You can see it along in here or from this side. Yeah, there's a shoulder there to go away. Did you notice in moving all that? This wasn't moving. Make any adjustments with the machine shut off. Something might go backwards and really mess up your day. A bit of a high spot. Not too bad. Okay, now I've done it. Got the basic shape of the plate done. Take it off the chuck. That's a bit of a small bottom for this plate to sit on, isn't it? Put something to eat on that, you'll flip it. Well, you got to take that off. If you have a vacuum chuck, you can pull that up on the vacuum, and how to secure it, you can take care of the tenon, do any other dressing up you want on the bottom of the plate. I don't have a vacuum chuck, but I have another device. How come this doesn't fit in the lock here? Well, it's your equipment. It was in the lathe when I brought it in. That's how I made a fatal mistake. No. Don't use a Teflon washer. Just put a death grip on it. Here's another chuck. The body is the same as this one. The difference is the jaws. They all function the same as the jaws we just worked with, except these little black rubber feet allow me to, if I've done it right, lock up. I've got the rim of the plate on the face of the jaws. Black rubber feet are all in place. I've got 8 points of contact. That should be fine. Now I can work around all of this. Take off the tenon, do a little recess underneath here, and it's done. Let's see if it'll behave. Too fast. It creates quite a wind when you have a high-speed rotation on these bigger jaws. And then I have a bigger set at home on my other lathe. I think I can grip up to 20-inch diameter. And I just, as a habit, when I'm doing this part of the work, I like to come straight in with the gouge to clean the tenon off. I know it's being held on pretty well with these feet, but something in my mind tells me that this is wrong, pushing this way. They don't seem to me to be as sturdy as a solid jaw. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just in my head. Let's just keep on whittling away what you don't want to have. With any luck, I have enough thickness here, because he didn't measure anything. Sometimes you can tell by sound that you're getting too thin. Other times you'll tell by the light that's coming through. Little birds fly in and out. Yeah. Now, taking the straight edge of the tool, you can see on the overhead that the actual center of this plate is still thicker. The rim is nowhere near where it should be. See if that did anything. It's a bit better. I'm curious how much material I've got. And since these jaws are not closed up tight, there's a little gap there. I can get in with this caliper and see that I've got that thick at the bottom right now. Well, that's nice. I can afford to lose a part of it. There, if you can see on the overhead, is it catching it?
Yeah.
I'm touching rim to rim. There's still a bit of a high spot in the very center. I'll clean that off. And this is just about done. Okay. It's got a little rim that can sit on. It's not a very pronounced rim, but that's okay. My last little mark that I like to put in, this is a little tool that Jim Johnson made for me once upon a time ago. I didn't know what to do with it. I figured it out. See if this light is helping. Did you hear that? Did you see it? You're not going to get an instant replay. I didn't tell you, these are the black rubber feet. They're kind of hard on your knuckle. Yeah. Keep your hands on this side of the tool rest, Mike. There you go. All I'm doing here is creating myself some little lines to write on. If you notice on the bottoms of these plates, stop. In between the three lines, I put my name, the type of wood it is, and then anywhere on the inside I'll put the year I make it, the stock number that it is, and the letter indicating the finish I use. It creates for me a little cleaner area to work with instead of freehanding all over. Let's see if this is going to actually look and feel like a plate. Realize it's not sanded, it's just a quick one of pass it around.